Ready to go live. I'm showing live. Are you showing live?
Yep.
Yay! What is up, everybody out there, you thrill seekers? If you are here because you're part of the Wine and Crime Book Club and you read The Violin Conspiracy with us this month by Brendan Slocumb, welcome. I'm excited to talk about this with you all and Kate. And if you're new and you're just here because you want to hear what we all thought about the Violin Conspiracy, welcome. If you would like to join us in the future, next month in January, the club voted for Sarah Gailey's Just Like Home. So this is the pick for next month. We read The Echo Wife by them earlier this year. Ended up really liking it, even though I thought I didn't. But the more I talked about it, the more I liked it. So weird how that happens. So I am excited for Just Like Home. But my goodness, some of the best books I read in 2022 are because of this book club.
Absolutely.
Kate, what did you think about The Violin Conspiracy?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. When I first started reading it, I wasn't sure how much I knew I was going to like it, but I didn't know how much I would love it. But the further I read, I just fell in love with the writing and the music in it and the grandma.
Rachel's dropping in to say hi, even though she hasn't read the book. You need to read this book.
You need to read it, but it's totally okay dropping in to say hi too.
Yes, we're so glad you dropped by. And Stacy is putting the hurricane to bed, and then she's going to be joining us. The Violin Conspiracy is a literary thriller. And I admit I was a little bit concerned how this one would go over for the group because I love literary fiction, but it can go either way. And how I define, and Kate, jump in here and tell me if you feel differently, how I define literary works, you have your story, that's your entertainment, and so we have our thriller, but the author includes and explores and educates us about underlying themes in the story. And for me, the underlying theme here is the author just wanted everyone to accept or just understand music is for everyone. It is musicians love to create. Their passion is to share the music with the world. I can't play. I tried. I can't. But I appreciate listening and of just absorbing the beautiful music. But for our main character, Ray McMillan, music has no color. Mm-hmm. There's a quote. I have it marked with my coaster. The author wrote, and I believe this was in the afterword at the end of the book, music is about communication, a way of touching your fellow man beyond and above and below language. It is a language all its own. And it's just, I loved it. Absolutely adored the book. But again, I knew I love literary thrillers, but I was wondering, The Violin Conspiracy, was it going to be too in-depth into the music part of it? And I believe the author did an excellent job of writing this so that musicians would enjoy it. And for those of us who maybe don't recognize all of the pieces mentioned, they explained it in a way that I understood it or understood enough of it to follow it. How about you? Did you feel the same?
Yeah, I felt like he balanced the music part of the book with the thriller aspect of it really well, where one didn't overpower the other.
So I feel the literary part did overpower the thriller. Like the thriller aspects are on the weaker side, but I was so in love with the story of Ray. Right. And so in love with this. I think I have grandma envy because some of my favorite characters have been grandmothers in some of the books that we've read this year. And Grandma Nora,
Oh my
Sci-Fi
gosh, you
Rogue
just
is
had my
wishing
heart from the
Happy
start.
New Year from Ireland. Kate, look, we need to go to Ireland. It is a sign. Yes, Priscilla, that is my favorite. Yes. And there's Amanda. So what is
Oh, hold on.
this? Oh,
I'll be right back.
okay. Well, while Kate is doing that, I can summarize the story of the violin conspiracy. What attracted my attention for this? In the very beginning, in the first chapter, we meet our main character, Ray McMillan, and he arrives home from playing in an event. He opens his violin case, and the violin is gone. Inside is a white Chuck Taylor, a Converse shoe, with a ransom note asking Ray to deposit $5 million worth of Bitcoin into an account by a certain date. And he proceeds to just fall apart. The reason why is you and I will probably, I was drawn to the fact that he just casually drops that this is a Stradivarius violin. It is worth $10 million. It is insured for $10 million. That's where my eyes were immediately drawn, and I thought that's what Ray's concern was. But as the story then progressed, we go back into the past of Ray, how he got into music, his love for music, how he came into possession of this violin, which was passed down by his grandmother, Nora. It was her great-grandfather's. It was Pop's. And the story is Ray, well, not the story is. But then I started to think, you know what? No, that's not, Ray's not thinking about this money, this insurance money. He loves this violin. He feels the most beautiful way that he can make music is because of this violin. But that didn't stop me from suspecting him and this theft. I mean, I suspected everyone in this story except for the dang responsible party. I never
Oh no, not
suspected
me.
them. Never suspected them.
The first-
Everybody else.
I suspected everyone but Ray. For Ray, it was all about the violin and the connection to his family.
Well, see, I thought that might be a red herring. But
for me, the minute the responsible party came onto the page, I was like, yep, that's suspect. I have like first 8 chapters, I have notes, and the first thing is, I suspect this person, this person, this person, this person. Who are these people?
I remember that. I remember you're like, who are these people? And I'm like, oh, just wait. That's coming.
They're devious
but for
too.
Anybody who is in the chat or stopping by watching the replay and you haven't read The Violin Conspiracy, I'm going to ask everybody who is here to put in the comments what they rated this book. For me, I absolutely loved it. And I originally borrowed it from my library because I loved it so much. I bought it with some of my Christmas money. I'm so proud to own this book. I will reread it. You know, there's so many things I loved about it, but I would reread it for Grandma Nora. Hands down, every time I would reread it for Grandma Nora. But if everybody wants to tell us in the chat what they rated it, we can share that. But if you're here and you haven't read it, now is probably a time to duck out so we can get into the nitty-gritty spoilers and talking about our predictions, suspicions, and who we thought it was and was it that person? I was wrong. I was so wrong. Brendan Slocumb did a great job.
He did.
By implicating people, and then by not implicating other people, that made me look really hard at those people. Mm-hmm. So let's see. So Ashley said 4 or 4.25. Andres 4.5. Haven't read it. Okay, bye Priscilla. And 4.5. So yeah, it looks like across the board, everyone felt the same way about this novel. So where do we start in digging into this one, there were so many wonderful quotes.
Mm-hmm.
So many quotes. I mean, I just have them all like sprawled all in this journal here.
Me too.
That when I read back over them before we got started today, it just brought back the wonderful memories. I felt like Ray when he was remembering his past, bringing us how he came into possession of the violin and just how important it was to him. Also, just how his career was rising throughout. And just because his career in music took off and he started getting noticed and invited to perform, that's when Ray got pulled from the town that he had always known and grown up in and was exposed to the larger world. And I loved how Brendan Slocumb illustrated just one, how difficult it was for Black musicians to make it in the classical music world. And on top of that, Ray had never really experienced just the boldness of other people about how racist they are. And then the author introduced something that I haven't seen mentioned in many books, but it happens all the time. He called it unintentional racism, where when Ray was employing some of the Europeans that were in different roles, conductors and performers, to help him get ready for competing in the Tchaikovsky competition, which I learned was a thing. I didn't know that was real. That's actually real, as well as art investigators. I cannot wait to read more books about. I want to find a series that follows an art investigator, like these high dollar art theft.
That reminded me of the show White Collar.
Yeah, I want more. I want more. I wish that had played a little bit bigger role in this one, but
I want to go back and reread it. Yeah. But playing like all the musical pieces that he mentions in it, like when you get to it.
That would be such a great idea. There were some that I knew, and there were some that I thought I didn't know, and then I would Google it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I have heard this piece or either parts of it used in different shows or ads or things. But let's see. I didn't either. And the reason why I didn't suspect the responsible person is because the author included such the cute little story of how these two met. And I was like, oh, this is so cute.
I suspected them all along, but I didn't know that they did it, if that makes sense.
We're in spoilers, so we can call out Naughty Nicole here, but if perhaps it had been revealed in some way about her ex or mentioned or something of that nature, I would have.
He did a real good job at hiding it.
Yeah. And if at first I thought, that's kind of convenient. But then I was like, you know what? In a brand new relationship, that other person that you're attracted to can do no wrong.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You got the blinders on. You're just all about this person. You don't hone in on the nuances yet. That comes a little bit later in the relationship. And I think he was just overcome with finding someone who shared his passion. And but after it was revealed, I thought, we did have clues. Yeah. We did have clues.
I mean, for me, I had to go back and see, like, how long have these two been together? Because it felt like a lot longer than it actually was. And I'm sitting there thinking, they've only been together for a couple months, like 6 months, maybe. And he's leaving her alone in the room with this priceless violin. And then all of a sudden it goes missing and she's the last person to see it. Yeah. And no one suspects. I'm like, how can no one suspect her?
Because if Kate, we're
And
just
then
gonna
she
break
kept
it. We're
pushing
gonna
his GoFundMe account. Like,
we're
she
we're
put
just
on, like,
gonna.
the sugary, you know.
Well, she didn't want to hurt him. Like, she
Right.
didn't want to leave him, penniless and violinless. But let me just break this down for you, because I have had this happen to a lot of my guy friends. They stay single for a long time, and then they find a girl, and then it's all over. Like,
Yeah.
that they fall off the face of the earth. This girl is everything, and I think Ray had a little bit of that. Because I don't believe
Absolutely.
he ever
He
had
was
a serious
completely loved one.
girlfriend. Music was his
Yeah.
main goal, his passion. He just worked so hard. I also loved the character relationships in this book were hugely important to me, starting with the mentor.
Mhm.
The professor that heard him play, offered him the scholarship. She used so much of her personal funds to help him
Mhm.
get to the Tchaikovsky competition, tried to help him pay the ransom to get his violin back in
Right.
time to compete with it. And because of how amazing she was in recognizing his potential and helping him achieve it, he turned around and was the same way. Like, when he would see a young violinist and he was helping judge competitions, and the other judges were just saying hurtful things to all of the kids competing and just crushing them, he always made sure that he was positive. He would go and talk with the child. I thought that was just, because that's him paying it forward.
Right.
And I just love that. That just made me feel so good, because I hope that somebody reads this book someday. And if they don't have somebody, and I forgot her name. I want to say it started with a J, but somebody, what was her name? Did I write it down? I don't know. But I hope that if somebody doesn't have a grandma Nora to be their moral compass, and they don't have someone like his musical mentor, I hope that they can read this book and these fictional characters can inspire them to be better and help others. It's so good. Yeah, that is exactly what.
Yeah, I mean, although it drove me crazy when I saw Ray acting in these ways, I knew why he was doing it. I knew why he trusted Nicole just the way he did. I knew why he never suspected her, why, he was doing all of this stuff, but at the same time, I'm like, oh my God. And like,
It's
the fact
so
that
hard
he never
to keep
thought
this.
to look in his violin case for those dang papers this whole time,
Oh
I'm like,
man.
oh my God. Like, if you've looked everywhere, you've had your family that hates you, that's suing you for this violin to look for these papers, and you, like, Grandma Nora kept, like, harking on the case itself. Like,
Yeah.
where is the case? Where is the case? He never once thought to look in that dang case. I'm like,
Well, he just thought it was so ratty and so ugly that, but I mean,
well, he did keep it.
He kept it. He knew to keep it. Ah, yes, Andreas coming in with the save. Janice Stevens. Thank you. I was like, I think it starts with a J. That's it. So let's talk about, so Ray is working hard to make a name for himself, not make a name for himself. He wants to share his music with the world, and he wants to do it in the classical music scene, and he wants to win the Tchaikovsky competition. He wants to be the first American to win in the violin division, the first Black American. And because no other American in the 50 some odd years this competition has been created, no American ever won except the very first year. That was Van Cliburn won in the piano division. Ray wants to be the one to win, and I wanted him to win so bad. So on top of that, on top of the racism that he is experiencing trying to climb this ladder, his family His
Oh my God.
family is so greedy and selfish, suing him because they're like, Grandma did not mean for you to actually have this violin. Like, y'all were all there at Christmas when she gave this to him.
Right. And she
Y'all
said,
know.
you all had a chance at this violin, but no one wanted anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
She tried to get them to play it when they were kids.
And then you have the Marks family. So that is who I just knew they were the ones that were behind the theft.
For me,
But
they were
then,
the red herring.
you know, kind of towards the end, I felt that way because I thought, you know, would they be working so hard if they actually had the violin?
Right. I was like, I wouldn't put it past them, but they're so vile that I felt like it was going to be someone else
Mm-hmm.
not as bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So the Marks family, just to refresh everybody, this is the family that migrated over and they actually did purchase and own that violin in the beginning. But one of the Marks, the men, was a slave owner. And Pop Pop was one of the slaves that Leon Marks owned. Pop Pop could play that fiddle, and it was just the thing that Leon Marks loved the most. He was not a nice man, but he loved and was soothed by the music that Pop Pop could play on that fiddle. And Pop Pop played that fiddle every single day, every night. He would play for all their parties. He would take Pop Pop to other plantation owners to play there as well. And when Leon Marks was very sick and he knew he was not long for this world, not only did he free Pop Pop, but he gave him the fiddle too. Well, the Marks family, when they heard about the fiddle, they were like, "Oh no, you can't prove that our ancestor gave this fiddle to your ancestor, so we're going to sue you for it." And I just felt so bad for Ray. He's getting sued by the Marks family. He's getting sued by his family. He is trying to prepare for the just most prestigious musical competition in the world. And then his fiddle gets stolen. I don't know how he managed to function. I would have fallen apart. Just fallen apart. Yes. I agree with you, Stacy. They needed a first class ticket to somewhere else. Oh man. And the worst thing about them trying to claim the violin on both sides is Ray's family. He was sending them almost all of the money that he made from all of the work that he did, all of the hard work he did traveling and playing all of these different places. He was sending all of his aunts and uncles and mama money. Yeah, they were the absolute worst. I could not stand them. But man, one little thing that I had a bit of an issue with is how were they able to convict Nicole and her boyfriend when there's no way it could not have been found out that Ray committed a crime to steal his violin back?
Right.
Like, wouldn't that have been thrown out in court that he obtained it illegally?
That's what I was thinking too. I was writing furious notes at that chapter. I'm like, Ray never listens. He breaks into both her house and the boyfriend's house. Like, yes, I get you want to get this violin back. You want to know where it's at. You don't even know if it's there or not. You're just going on a hunch. Like, how is this going to stand up in court? And that's never addressed, but
yeah,
just a vindication that Ray found his violin again was enough for me because it was all about getting that violin back.
Yeah. And so Andreas, the limited perspective of Ray's keeps our focus on Ray's family and the Marks. It's only when the Tchaikovsky begins we learn about the international art theft and possible other global suspects.
Oh yeah,
that intrigued me so much. That's why I was saying I want to read more where perhaps our main character is an investigator for art theft. I would have loved a little bit more information about that black market that she was posing as a buyer to try and see if that was if that was Ray's violin being stolen. I love that. I thought that was so interesting. So I'm on the hunt. I'm on the hunt. I talked to one of my friends at one of Chris's work parties, and she's read other books where this is mentioned, and she loves art theft kind of things too. So I want to learn more about that. Definitely. So if any of y'all have read books like that and y'all want to drop those in the comments or send them to me in a message, I'm all ears. You know, that is a good point. But he has to have some kind of way to explain how he came into possession of the violin and how he knew it was them. Because he stole the key to the storage unit out of the boyfriend's house. And the only way he was going to get that is going in the house. And he broke a window. So the guy, you know, so I don't know. That was the only little nitpicking issue that I had. I mean, if I had to say the one thing that kept it from just being top notch, I don't care. It was still excellent. I'm so excited. He's got another thriller that I'm assuming is going to be musically inclined. I read the book description, but I have since forgotten it because I kind of didn't care. It's Symphony of Secrets, coming out April of 2023. And I read what it was about, but like I said, since I didn't care, I was like, I'm going to read it anyway. I pre-ordered it. So I don't know. What do you think? You're going to read more about Brendan Slocumb?
Definitely.
That's what I love to hear. How about the rest of y'all floating out in the comments? Are y'all going to read Symphony of Secrets with me in April or May?
I love the way that he kind of balanced the thriller aspect with the literary fiction, plus, you know, like the racial themes coming in. They just felt like they were so well balanced that I never felt completely overpowered by one thing at a time. You know, when one felt like it was starting to take over, another one came in to take its place. It just felt so well balanced.
I mean, I don't think we've read another thriller this year where I wrote down like 5 quotes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
chapter by chapter notes.
I usually only find 1 to 2 good quotes per book. If there are any. There are occasionally some that don't have anything. But for this many, and to just strike me in a way that I will not. This is a very, very memorable book. Definitely. Not because of the thriller aspects, but those literary themes that just kind of draw my attention to it, shine a spotlight on it, and be like, hey, you need to be aware of this. Not that I feel like I do any of this, but so I can step in if I see somebody else doing it and be like, hey, you know, maybe you shouldn't say you're kind, or, you know, be more specific about what you mean, and maybe think about what it is you're saying it and how you're saying it.
Yeah. And even the lessons that Grandma Nora taught Ray growing up, dealing with, you know, racism and racists. Anyone that's been bullied before.
Well, Andreas has here. This is Grandma Nora. Grandma Nora was Ray's true north. Because like he says, with all the obstacles, musical challenges, lack of support, it's a wonder Ray stays someone not driven by negative emotions. Grandma Nora, he remembered every time. And he was human. Sometimes he fell prey to it. He got angry, but he would always remember how she said to stand tall. Life isn't fair. You got to do it twice as good as somebody else. Sometimes 3 times better than they did. You just got to work 3 times as hard and never stop. And he would just physically in the book just stand up and put his shoulders back and just attack, not being ugly. He was always so polite in how he dealt with people. He was never angry and abusive towards these people that were so rude, whether intentional or not. He would just kind of ask little questions or make little funny little responses that,
Right.
He's
or when he became a big deal, he was like, next time, don't ask a Black person to play music just by these composers.
Right, right. Well, and then I was like, Grandma Nora, towards the end, when he just kept remembering the things that she told him, man, I cried.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, this is a thriller. Why am I crying? But where I really had the waterworks turn on was the author's afterword.
Mm-hmm.
Whew.
Yeah.
I know you cried too. You told me.
I did. Definitely. And the other part that really got me was when we got the true backstory of the violin that was in Grandma Nora's handwriting.
Oh my god.
She wrote it as she was a kid, and her dad, it was being relayed to her, and he said, don't ever forget these words. Write these down 3 times if you have to.
Yeah. So he passed it down to her and she passed it on. And that reminds me. So I immersion read. The audiobook narrator, I want to say, was J.D. Jackson for The Violin Conspiracy. Outstanding. Absolutely. I just absolutely loved his narration of the story. But yeah. Oh yeah. Grandma Nora. That's why I think Grandma Nora gave me grandma envy. I would have loved to have had a grandmother like Grandma Nora. I would even settle for the one, Molly Gray's grandmother and the maid. I would love to have a grandmother like one of these two to teach me these sort of things. My dad did a good job.
And I had a grandma similar to that growing up who was just, no matter what your passion was, she was there to support you. Whether it was sports or music or books, whatever it was, or all 3 in my case at one point in my life, she was there at every one of our games, every one of our concerts, every one of our recitals. She was always,
she showed up
giving me books. She was always there, and she always remembered everything. And she just, always taught me to, no matter, I remember one day we were sitting down. I was in high school, and it was just after my grandpa had passed. And she became my best friend at that point. And she said, no matter how low you feel, no matter what anyone tells you, you have to always believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, then no one else will.
Yep.
And ever since then, that stuck with me.
So, obviously, I think our favorite character was Grandma Nora. And what was it? What was it Grandma Nora said something? She said something to him about, something about people bringing you down. You can't let them do it. No.
When you begin to hate them just because they hate you, you turn into them. And then they win.
What was it? Oh. It's not fair, but that's how some people will always see you as less than they are. Yeah. Well, then I read recently Never Finished by David Goggins. And something he said that stood out that kind of ties into that a little bit. He said, you're never going to find a hater doing better than you are. And I thought, oh, Grandma Nora and David Goggins teaming up on that. So we know who our favorite character was. Who was your least favorite character? Can you guess?
For me,
mine?
it was the Marx family.
Mine was Uncle Roger. The guy that the very first playing the violin gig that Ray got with his friends in high school was playing the wedding. And it was at like this big house in a well-to-do, wealthy neighborhood. And when he knocked on the door, it was a white man, and it was Uncle Roger. And he's like, who are you? Why are you here? And he's like, I'm here to play with the band for the wedding, for your daughter's wedding. And he's like, no, you're not. And shuts the door on him. And then gets really ugly at him and just treats him terribly. And Ray even comes, he comes in, the rest of the band comes around, gets him, leads him out. They play the wedding. It's beautiful. The mother-in-law loved it. The bride loved it. But Uncle Roger's like, he had a few choice words to say. And I was like, man, am I going to reach through the pages of this book?
For me,
oh yeah, his mom.
I mean, for me, it was more. I've known people with families like Ray's family, and I've known people like Uncle Roger. So while they were despicable and I did not like them at all, the Marx family just topped them all because they had the audacity to just march into his house, demand the violin, and then they stalked him out in Boston and provoked him to attack them, and then played the white privilege card with the cops in Boston to get him arrested. And to me, just nothing could top the Marx. And then they got their comeuppance when it was proven through Grandma Nora's papers that Ray was the true owner of the violin.
And he never really lost his cool. He was very patient.
No, there was one time when they were in Boston and the Marx were threatening him, and then they called the cops, where he kind of lost his cool. And I wrote down, Ray, I know why you're doing this, but you can't do this and expect nothing to happen.
It was just...
other than that, he kept his cool the entire time, no matter what anyone said to him.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I know I would react and be so angry, and I can't imagine being in the position that he was in and just able to function. I would have been whooping some I would have been in jail, and I would have stayed there. Because I can't imagine the anxiety and the stress that he was under. And, he never gave up. He never gave up. He never stopped looking for the violin. He never stopped trying to find out who had it. He was willing to, they started the GoFundMe to raise the $5 million to pay to get the violin back. Yeah. And it's just, I would have just probably curled up in a little ball and thrown a fit and then cried myself out.
Right.
And then just been a bump on a log waiting for somebody else to find the violin. Or I would have never gone to the Tchaikovsky competition. I would have probably just given up. But hopefully, if something like that were to happen to me in the future, I can remember the story of Ray, and Grandma Nora can remind me, if I find myself in a situation, to not reciprocate, but instead to stand up, put my shoulders back, and act respectfully, even if I am not being treated with respect. Ugh.
I mean, another thing that I can relate to with Ray is that until he, got placed in the Tchaikovsky competition, he suffered through imposter syndrome, basically most of the book. And that's been basically my entire life. No matter what I'm going through, I'm always like, I don't belong here. I don't belong there. I don't I've always felt imposter syndrome. So, that entire time I could relate to him feeling like he didn't belong for different reasons, obviously, but I could relate to that so much. And then I just kept hearing, like, from now on, I'm just going to keep hearing Grimnor's voice saying, yes, you belong, you belong, you belong.
Yeah, I think we all just have those, just a low point where you get discouraged. For me, I get they don't come often enough because I'm not a creative person. It takes a while for a creative inspiration to hit. And I get so excited, but sometimes how it is in my mind, it's very difficult for me to make it a reality.
Absolutely.
And it usually involves me learning something new. And I'm not a fast learner with technology, like video editing, all this stuff. And I'll get frustrated. I'll sink a lot of time into it because I have a one-track mind. And I'm like, I am going to figure this out. I'm going to get it done. And then it's just not working the way I want it. And I'm like, why do I even do this? Why do I do this? And, it just take a little break and then I figure it out or I'm happy with what I am able to get done. And then I'm like, okay, I'm cool. I'm fine. Why was I feeling that way? This is great. This is my life.
Yeah.
So I think everybody experiences it. I think we just have times not, this is, just times of the month where we just are a little lower than usual. I mean, sometimes I feel like I wake up and my personality stayed asleep. And I'm just like, well, I feel nothing about nothing. I have no opinions.
I call that zombie mode.
And it's just like, I'm over it.
Yeah.
But definitely, I still think Razorblade Tears is my top favorite wine and crime book of the year. But this one is a very close second as far as love. This one has more rereadability, I believe, for me.
Yeah.
Although Razorblade Tears definitely has rereadability for me because there are lots of really great messages in that one as well. But this was such a fantastic book. I'm so glad whoever found this one and suggested it for the book club as a pick. Thank you so much for putting that on our radar because that not only is it one of my favorite books I read just with the Wine and Crime Book Club this year, it's one of my favorite books I've read in 2022. It's just something about the story and the characters and the character relationships and just how inspired it makes me feel that just makes it so memorable. It brings me joy. I love it. That's why I had to buy myself a copy. But that's all I have to say about the book. You have any final thoughts, Kate, or those watching?
No, I think we touched on just about everything.
Ashley, you made such a great pick. Well, guys, I guess we'll end it here. I'm sure a lot of you maybe have New Year's Eve plans. We do not. We were going to go to a party, but the people throwing the party are stranded in New York. They've been stranded in Buffalo, New York for like 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah, Buffalo.
Yeah. And on top of that, there's some emergency changes that Chris has to put in for work tonight. So we'll have to spend the rest of the year reading. So So I am very, very excited to have read this one. Thank you all for such an amazing year of being part of this book club and reading these books together and then talking about them and having a lot of fun with them. I can't wait to see what our reads for next year are going to be. I might do a little something in Discord perhaps where we rank all of the books we've read so far this year and just for funsies. Who knows? We'll see what happens. I'm still catching up from being gone on Christmas holidays. I didn't do anything but read, so I'm behind on content, editing, filming, writing reviews, posting blog updates. So that's what I'm going to go work on for a little while. But Kate, thank you for being a part of the show today. And thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of your year. And we'll be back here next year with Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. I hope it is written just as intriguing and good as The Echo Wife. Thanks, y'all. Have a good rest of your day. We'll catch y'all later. And now I find the end broadcast.